Greetings, beautiful people. This is Courtney Porter. I am here on the Urban Naturalist Association with another World and Black History exploration. If you are returning, thank you for joining me again. If this is the first time you catching one of my videos, welcome. This has been the overflow of what has been a very, very personal journey to know and learn myself. And in this exploration, it has centered around identity. I born and raised in the Midwest of the United States, Indiana. Again, the fruit of America's history as it relates to Black and brown people have been spotlighted as I go through my own growth and spiritual experiences, and identity is proving to show its importance. So the first two videos that I posted under this, history banner, it explored the relationship of African Americans and Palestinians. The most recent one, labeled Black, British, and Otherwise, it explored the connections to Native American Islamic culture through the framework of exploring Indiana as a place, and the connections, again, to be made to the crown from those Native American experiences. And today, here, December the 13th, 2021, I am going to share with you guys an exploration of Black Caucasians. And this narrative is important at this time because in current events, the news media has been showcasing the volley between Russia and the Ukraine. Most of us are disconnected from the historic narrative of these two places, much like we are disconnected from the European story simply because we don't connect with it. So with this work, I hope to show some of the very fine hidden things that connect us to these people and places that are in far off lands. And again, right now, the battle with the battle with Russia and the Ukraine is, they are bordering countries. Russia is considered a part of European nations, but it is technically an Asian country. And the Ukraine is in a position of choosing how much so it wants to involve itself with Western relations and choosing to affiliate with NATO. So that's the current narrative. But behind the scenes, there is a different war being waged. And again, I just want to show the interconnectedness of people in place. And again, how things have been moved around so much so that we can be completely disconnected from people who are more close to us than sometimes the people we are sharing a community with. So Native Russia and the Ukraine. We'll start with a little geography. In between conversion worlds, here is a map of Asia. It's the largest, most populous continent. It shares the landmass of Eurasia with Europe and Africa. It's subdivided into 49 countries. And as I mentioned before, although it's partly in Asia, it is considered to be a European nation. The countries that we are going to explore fall right around in this area. We are going to be looking at the Black Sea, which is here. Its western neighbor, the Ukraine, is a country in Eastern Europe, and it's the second largest country after Russia. It's bordered by Belarus, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania. It has coastline along the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea. World wars have been fought to prevent the confluence of these cultures. Religious belief turned to political war, democracy versus communism, Christian Catholic versus Islam. So this is Asia. Most notable about the area that we're going to explore in Russia and the Ukraine is mountains. Not only are the Caucasus Mountains one of the most noted ones when you talk about Europe, Mount Ararat also comes up, and it's in the area. This is an area of rich mystery and folklore. It's said to be the landing place of Noah's Ark after the flood. It is the setting of the legend of Jason and the Golden Fleece, which is where we get the first Medea before Tyler Perry. And it's the place where Prometheus is said to have been chained and punished for revealing the secrets of fire. So again, in this whole who's who on the planet, a huge source of information comes through the Bible. And we know that it cuts off history as it relates to, the Atlanteans and giants, and again, the flood that is even documented in the Epic of Gilgamesh. But the lineage there is important because it is historically the thing that has confused the peoples and the places. So again, this area has a very rich history. And again, I love maps. I learn a lot from maps. You kind of see where we are in the spectrum of what's happening. There's Russia and the Ukraine. So again, you see that they're neighbors in this part of Europe. You have Belarus, Poland, Romania. And again, the close proximity to Moorish Spain and North Africa, all to be noted. So the Black Sea settlements, not only were there Blacks in that area, there were Blacks in a lot of the areas that were close to it. It was not until the early 20th century, though, that the Russian public was made aware of the settlements of Black people. And strangely enough, when they began to acknowledge and study and want to learn about these people, we had World War I to erupt. In fact, each time this information has been spotlighted, we have some type of major disruption on the world stage. The Black Sea settlements were usually positioned in such a way where the rugged terrain made it easy for them to remain isolated and unknown to the public. There were, again, settlements not only in the areas of the Caucasus, but also in the Batumi province and Sukhumi which were in Georgia. And with these two pictures that I found of native Russians, I want you to pay attention to the headdresses. This one is very much similar in style to what would now be considered a Moroccan fez. And this one on this gentleman is like the Bedouin nomads. So when you are studying the who's who, looking to find out who these people were, one of the first accounts comes by way of ancient Georgia and a people they called the Kochians. The ancient Greeks account for an area called Colchis, that's mentioned as early as the 8th century BC, in points. The first Greek to actually write about this area was Herodotus, and he described the Cochilians as black-skinned with woolly hair. He speculated that they were the remnants of descendants from the army of Emperor Sesostris, who had conquered parts of Asia. Herodotus paid close attention to detail, and he made sure to differentiate the fact that the Cochilians were different than the Egyptians and the Ethiopians. Another historian, Lavrov, speculated that the area was settled by the House of Ham. Again, another biblical connection to the three sons of Noah. In addition to Herodotus, other accounts name the people of Abyssinia the last people, and they are said to have formerly been called Cochilians. There's a link between these Abkhazian blacks and the creation of the Khazar Empire. And again, just to reiterate, the Cochilian legend or history that predates the Greek is what has given us some of the stories of Medea and Jason and the Golden Fleece, things like that. Again, another map to pay attention to. We have the Kingdom of Armenia, we have Iberia, we have Colchis, and again, all of these make me think of Spain and North Africa. And again, the Arabians, the people who were moving, simply because we know of Iberia as a connection to Spain. And again, Armenia was a connection that I was able to even make in my last video to St. Leon, Indiana, where they worshiped an Armenian St. Leon. So very interesting connections to make with ancient Georgia and the country where we have modern Atlanta, Georgia. Again, another connection to a biblical prehistory that connects us to Atlantis. But focusing on Russia and the Ukraine, when you study Russia, you come into Abkhazia, which we just mentioned. And currently it's the only autonomous republic that's now part of the Soviet Union. Historians like Varady and Professor B. Adler report finding small isolated colonies of Negroes of relatively unmixed blood. These people were at times referred to, again, we have that word Las, also Arabs, the Adzars, and it was determined that most of these Negroes were Muslim and spoke only Abkhazian language, living in the area since time immemorial. These were not the slaves or their descendants who were brought into the area by the trading colonies of the Greeks, Romans, Arab, Genoese, or Turks that had each had a turn in establishing in the Caucasus region. And when you start to study these people, it is interesting to note that they have some of the longest lifespans that have been documented. And so far it's been attributed not only to the genetics, but the tucked off way of life that they're able to lead, a lifestyle that's very much so still based in nature, eating food from the land and being active on the land. Going back even further, or possibly still in the same periods of time, we have another group of people who are settling around Armenia and the southern area of Russia. The southern Ukraine and Russia contains complex burial mound systems that date from the 8th to the 3rd century. And here in the United States of America, they're called mounds, and we have what's called the mound builder civilization. There, they're called kurgans, and they're said to be the resting place of the Scythian elite, who were, again, a separate people from the Cochilians. And again, the interesting thing that connects us back into the Midwest and the empire that was in the West is the fact that these Scythians were a Central Asian rider nomadic group and empire. They were centered around equestrian activities and a free way of life. They controlled large swaths of Eurasia, from that area around the Black Sea on into Siberia, out into East Asia. It is said that they had entered Russia and Armenia around 700 BC, which corresponds to Israelite exile. So again, just interesting to note how the study of two countries a world away in an entirely different continent is connecting us back to these small bands of people who would travel around Indiana, basically shaping how the United States dealt with people who didn't fit into what was being formed in the West. These people who were not settlers, these people who were hard to control and keep count of. It reminds me of, again, a story waiting to be told in my collection of Indiana narratives to tell, of the Ben Ishmael tribe. And the Ben Ishmael tribe was, again, a triracial group of nomadic people who were found on the White River. And these people caused such a problem that it was some of the first immigration laws passed to keep them out of Indiana from Kentucky and Illinois. We have some of the first eugenics laws passed after they're being studied and deemed as paupers. They pleaded the case that this condition of poverty was hereditary. And again, based on that argument that was posed by, his name was Jokes out of New York. And we have McCullough, who was, again, right in Indiana. These set the foundations for Margaret Sanger to come in with, again, the basis for why sterilization made sense. So all of these connections to be made based off of just following this history, and again, seeing through what's being shown to us in a way that allows for peace instead of war. So let's look more at the people in this hidden Russia. These pictures don't have descriptions, and I do apologize to the people that I'm not able to name, but these were some of the people that came up in my search of Russians. So I just wanted you to see some of the many varieties of faces in the diaspora of the people. And again, it's interesting to note that these look a lot like the people that you would have found in these triracial groups in America. Again, you have this connection to the Moorish Fez, or what is now the Shriners Fez. Just again, showing how the racial makeup was varied, and again, made little difference as to what people identified themselves as. Afro-Russians are a thing. One of the first families to be studied because of this curiosity with Afro-Russians was the family of Nutsa Abash. Nutsa Abash was the granddaughter of Sophia Mozalev, who in this picture was about 112 years old, it says. Nutsa is pictured here in that left corner of the family photo with her uncles, I believe, and her brother. Her family was the topic of much study on race relations in the Soviet Union. She was a prominent doctor, a gynecologist, and she came from a family of successful people who've been political leaders, civil workers, entertainers throughout Russia and Georgia. And they traced their connection to the Abashid Empire and Prince Abashidze. And I know I'm mispronouncing that. So again, I was kind enough to type it for you so you can take notes and do your own research as always. With her family being studied for so long, they have a lot of great pictures of her and her daughter. They were the face of race relations for a long time for the Soviet Union. There is a great article about her and her family that you can find for free on Google. And let me see if I can get you the name of it really quickly. It is the USSR issue 88 through 99. And it's just a one-page article written by Yuri Okov, O-K-O-V. It shows pictures of her family, her cousins, and again, just more of the phenotype of these African or Black or Native, however you are comfortable labeling it, Russians. Nutsa Abash. So here is her in old age, looking a lot like a lot of our matriarchs. This is her with her daughter. So it's easy to see the progressive lightening or how one becomes white in Russia. And again, her and her daughter were the controversy. Well, I won't say controversy. They were the topic of many conversations on how, you know, people respond to this level of color diversity in families and in the society at large. So Nutsa Abash is a really good study. And just like the people that's hidden in Russia, the Russia you read about is nothing like the Russia that is painted for you coming from a pro-Africa background. We are always taught that these Caucasus Mountains were cold, and this is where we lost pigment, all types of narratives like this. These quotes were taken from the book Russia and the Negro. It's written by Alison Blakely. And again, you can read along with me. First quote, all accounts, at least up until 1960, agreed in depicting the region as an idyllic tropical setting with houses shaded by palms and magnolias, all framed by snow-capped mountains. It is the land that in ancient time was called Apsiny, or Soul's Land. End quote. Next quote comes from a letter that was included in the book that was written from one explorer to someone in an empire, if I'm remembering correctly. But again, the letters from Cathcats to E. Markov. And he says, passing for the first time through the Abkhazian community of At-Zubaza on the banks of Kodor, I was struck by the purely tropical landscape. Against the background of a bright green primeval jungle stood huts and sheds built of wood and covered with reeds. Curly-headed Negro children played on the ground, and a Negro woman passed by grandly, carrying a bundle on her head. Black-skinned people wearing white clothes in the bright sun resembled a typical picture of some African scene. These Negroes do not differ in any way from the Abkhazians among whom they have been living for so long. They speak only Abkhazian and profess the same faith. It seems to me that these Negroes and those at Batumi Oblast are a chance phenomenon. So again, we get a differentiation of two different Black-skinned peoples who were able to coexist together. And it makes me think of, again, how Jewish people were able to hide in with the ancient Egyptians. And again, how the ancient Egyptians and the ancient Ethiopians and the Nubians were all of one people. And this is all important because right now, identity is confused. And again, identity and place connect. So displaced identity means a displaced people. And we talk a lot about Jewish ownership, but Jewish also has connections to identity. And it's our lack of awareness of who we are and where we stand that keeps us from making these same connections. So again, in my process of unpacking and learning and uncovering myself, my goal is to just share. And again, in Indianapolis, Indiana, which again is the United States of America, we have the Lois and Sidney Ashkenaz Hospital. That's a new structure. And they're also new contributors to a lot of the institutions, education and otherwise. So we have to know what's happening around us so that we can play a more active role in securing our identity, our legacy with that identity, and in turn, a future for ourselves. So this final picture, again, are of these ancient Khazarians as they progressed on. And again, it's still fascinating to see the characteristics that are so noteworthy, even as they begin to lighten, the curly hair and the beard, the eyes, all very interesting to note. So again, ancestors of the Yiddish Aromatic Aramaic Ashkenazi Jews are these Khazarians. So I hope I shared something that was beneficial and helpful for you. Excuse the door. Something that has inspired you to take up your own research. So I'm still going to be playing around in European history for my next video as I unpack some of our Irish roots and connections as it's come to my attention through, some of our American surnames. So if you have not currently, please subscribe to the channel so you can catch the next video. Share this video if you found the information useful and you think someone else can benefit from it. And like, until next time, peace, love, and light.